Hey, welcome back to the channel, or if you're new here, welcome to the channel. Today we're going to be taking a look at something that comes up whenever talking about cozy games, and that is the question of whether or not cozy games have to be easy. Just a little disclaimer, I'm a little bit under the weather today, so if I sound a little bit more nasally than usual, that's why. So sit back and maybe put this on in the background because there isn't going to be much in the way of exciting visuals or gameplay for you to miss, just me thinking out loud mostly. So if that sounds interesting to you, let's get into it. Alright, so this is a question that's come up a few times in the comments of some of my videos, and honestly, it's one that plagues the wider cozy gaming community in general. And to be clear, I don't think that this video will be any kind of definitive answer or conclusion either. This is just really a way of me exploring my own thoughts and feelings on the subject and taking you along for the ride. Of course, that means that I'm probably going to have opinions that you disagree with, and I would really love to hear all about that in the comments. But I also want to make sure that no one feels like I'm attempting to gatekeep cozy games. That's really not my intention with this video. As a blanket statement, I come at this with the opinion that no matter what the game is, if you find it to be cozy, then it's a cozy game. And no one should be able to take that away from you. When it comes to cozy games, I don't find much use debating the minutiae of what should or shouldn't be considered part of the genre. However, I do think because it's such a popular one, it's worth talking about and thinking critically about. Not only about what games might be considered cozy, but more broadly about what constitutes cozy games in the first place. We can start off by trying to understand what other people might be seeing when they look at cozy games as a genre. To start, the most widely known cozy games are things like Animal Crossing Stardew Valley and other chill, easy titles that don't really require much acquisition of the proverbial good. Some may refer to them, rather uncharitably, as little baby games, games you don't need to invest time into for the sake of learning the mechanics inside and out, or uncovering the meta so that you can have a competitive edge over other players. And this is, I think, where most people who aren't a fan of cozy games fall. One of the most common arguments against cozy games that I've heard is that they're simply too easy and don't pose a challenge, and that means they aren't inherently and intrinsically motivating. Now, I don't think this is an entirely wrong position to take, just a rather misinformed and, again, uncharitable one, but I do understand how some people might come to that conclusion about cozy games. After all, most people associate cozy games with exactly that, titles that don't really push you to your limit with regard to response time or accuracy, and because that's what a lot of people love about their games, the intense challenge, a game where the main goal is to just kind of chill out and talk to people while making your house nice and inviting, just how you like it, obviously isn't going to be all that appealing. However, I don't think that that's the biggest reason that cozy games get this bad rap. No. I think the main reason for that is one that should surprise pretty much none of you, and that is the ever-present specter of misogyny. Now, as a quick disclaimer, I am going to be talking a lot about gender and all of that, so I'll be using the words women and girls a lot here. And I just want to make it absolutely clear that when I say women and girls, I include all women and girls in that. We are a trans-friendly channel, and if that hurts your little feelings, then you can go ahead and call your mom so she can come pick you up. Okay, good. Now the rest of us mature adults are going to be getting back to our conversation. Okay, I know it's not exactly revolutionary to point out that gaming as a hobby is generally rather unwelcoming to women and people who don't fit the box of cishet white man, but I think it is particularly relevant when talking about cozy games because at least the genre staples like Stardew Valley and Animal Crossing are directly descended from classic girl games. Stardew Valley is a spiritual successor and expansion on the ideas first codified in the Harvest Moon series, which has always been, similarly to Animal Crossing, heavily marketed towards women and girls. And while that is certainly not to say that there aren't plenty of women and girls playing games like COD and more mainstream games like that, they aren't nearly as visible. The obvious reason being the fact that most mainstream games like COD absolutely do not cultivate an environment intended to make women and girls feel comfortable. If you're interested in getting a better idea of what it's like for women who dare to step foot into those spaces, I highly recommend these channels. They record the absolutely rampant verbal abuse and harassment that they receive playing these games, and I think it really helps us guys who don't generally see that side to really understand just how bad it really is. You know, aside from just listening to them when they tell us. But like I was saying, cozy games are generally far more geared towards women and girls, so naturally, as tends to be the case, when there's something that women and girls enjoy, that thing immediately becomes undesirable and beneath respect to your average man. And in the case of cozy games, that earns them the label of not real games. And usually that bias wrongly justifies itself by saying these girl games are just too easy and can't possibly be real big boy games. There's no challenge, no stakes, no intrigue, and so these games are deemed inferior due to their perceived lack of complexity. But of course, that's just blatantly false. For one, it's just not true to say that games like Stardew or Animal Crossing are easy per se. Sure, they don't see you flicking your mouse with incredible levels of precision or timing jumps down to the frame, but they have their own elements which add difficulty to the mix. But more importantly, even if they were completely without difficulty, does that mean you don't like cozy games or just easy games? Now I know, you're probably thinking, okay, I mean, I don't think cozy games have to be farming and slice of life focused, but come on, Elden Ring? Cozy? You've gone too far, internet man. And that is a fair reaction to have. I mean, this is a game that is a direct descendant of the Dark Souls games, some of the most infamously difficult and frustrating games known to gamers everywhere. And while this is true, I also think that it makes it a perfect example for me to use to help convince you that cozy games don't have to be what most uninitiated gamers would consider easy. To me, and I've said this time and time again in the comments under my videos, but to me, if a game is cozy to you, it's a cozy game. There is no list of things that I can make that will describe a cozy game, and there is no formula to follow to guarantee a cozy game. To me, the most important factor in whether or not a game can be called cozy is whether or not the player is able to get lost in it. I think that is the absolute most important part. After all, that's kind of the entire point of these kinds of games, to give us a world to run off to and feel something we maybe can't feel in real life. Maybe for you, that's a slow and peaceful life off in a rural village somewhere, or a calm lo-fi coffee shop. Or maybe for you, that's galloping across the lands between on your trusty steed, killing gods and all other manner of enemies. Maybe to you, the thing that makes a game cozy is the state of flow that you find yourself in when you're fighting a particularly difficult boss for the 15th time, whose moveset you've studied and learned like the back of your hand. Now, I'm not going to sit here and pretend I'm some kind of FromSoft god. I'm really not good at these games. I can generally hold my own, but I mostly enjoy the atmosphere and gameplay more than I do the intense challenge. However, I do think these games fit the cozy game label for me because FromSoft is so damn good at crafting a world and allowing you to feel like you're living in it. And I think more than any of their previous games, which I'll admit I've only played a couple of, Elden Ring takes the cake. There is so much to explore and discover, and while combat is relentless and unforgiving, if you meet it where it's at and learn the rules of the world, it's incredibly fair, and there is a certain comfort in that fairness and predictability. After just a couple hours, most gamers will start feeling fairly comfortable in the starting area after having learned how to fight most of the enemies there, and then you just do that over and over again with every region that you discover, learning the ins and outs of all the different enemy types, and there's just something really meditative about that. And for me, it's that meditative flow state that you can get into with these games that really gives me the cozy feeling. It's the same as the routine that you get into in Stardew or Animal Crossing. It doesn't really matter what you're doing, it's about the routine and predictability of it. It doesn't matter how hard a game is, if I'm able to feel like I understand the mechanics and am able to learn its ins and outs, that's what really matters to me. And I think, at least for me, that's a big part of what makes a game cozy. But let's not kid ourselves, that's not the only thing. A great atmosphere is incredibly important too, and Elden Ring hits the nail on the head with that aspect. There are few game worlds that have the personality that the Lands Between have. They really feel like a place you could reach out and touch, and probably catch some nasty disease from. And for a world that's so utterly dead, few feel as alive as this one. The vibes are impeccable, and if you're looking for a game to just spend endless hours in, and you don't mind some difficult but fair combat, there are few other games that I could recommend higher, aside from pretty much like any Zelda game. And that is a common thread with a lot of cozy games. Most games that will get the cozy label are those that are able to cultivate a vibe through their world building. Because, like I said earlier, a lot of what makes a game cozy is the ability to escape from your everyday life into a world that you wouldn't have access to in the real world. And I think that's why rural farming games like Stardew do so well with people. Yes, it's because it's a great game with amazingly well thought out mechanics, great art, and fun characters, but also because it fulfills the escapist fantasy of simple rural life, which, while utterly false, is incredibly appealing to our modern-day sensibilities. And I think Elden Ring's focus on defeating corrupted, larger-than-life gods does much the same thing. Many of us feel like we're under the boot of someone untouchable, whether that be a landlord, your parents, your boss. A lot of people resonate with the fantasy of punching up and coming out on top, no matter how much power the other person might have over you. It's a fantasy of escaping the control of other people, which we're all subject to as part of a globalized society. So just to wrap this video up and make sure I don't take up too much of your time, no, cozy games absolutely do not have to be easy. Cozy games can be literally any game that you can think of, and there's kind of no point to even trying to codify what makes a cozy game specifically, because it will vary widely from person to person. Cozy games are such a unique genre because they almost escape the usual trappings of genre entirely. They really are more of a vibe than anything definable and tangible. If you can take one thing away from this video, I hope it's that your opinions on the games that you've played have value. They may not align with mine or other people that you talk to, but that's okay. That's a good thing. It means you're having original thoughts. And if a piece of art can give you that, in my opinion, it's fulfilled its purpose. Your interests and your gaming preferences are valid and have value. Just because some sweaty dude on the internet says that the game that you like is dumb because it's too easy and doesn't have a bunch of scantily clad women for him to objectify in it, doesn't mean you're wrong to like it. And certainly doesn't mean that it's a bad game. But I'll end it here. Thank you so much for sticking around and hearing me out through my sick voice. I really appreciate you watching all the way to here. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring the bell so you never miss a video. And really do, please leave a comment. I love hearing all about what you have on your mind. But other than that, I hope you have a great day. I'll see you next week. And as always, happy gaming.